Let's face it, Godzilla is hella strong, at least depending on the incarnation. Now, I'm certain that 99% of you all know I'm a Godzilla fan. Have you seen my channel over the past year or so? And with that, I am very passionate about the series and care for it deeply. And one of my favorite things to do is screw with people and argue over which versions of Godzilla would hypothetically defeat another version. Now, early in March as of writing this, I got into an interesting debate on who would win between two different versions of Godzilla. And the person I was debating with, let's just say that I was not impressed whatsoever. The debate itself was between one of my favorite incarnations, the Final Wars Godzilla, against arguably the most popular incarnation as of now, the MonsterVerse Godzilla. And let me say, things got heated and a war broke out. So, today, I'm coming here to discuss who I think would win, based on some research I've done on both going off of what I know, as well as various calculations I found on the Versus Wiki. With that out of the way, let's do our best to, as of 2023, decide who's the bigger, stronger, and more powerful Godzilla. Final Wars versus MonsterVerse. Let's begin with Final Wars Godzilla, who appeared in 2004's Godzilla Final Wars. This incarnation is a big, mean fighting machine, standing at 100 meters tall and weighing in at 55,000 tons, and was able to clutch up 3v1s by himself, tank meteor strikes to the face, have martial arts battles with monsters, can quite literally yeet kaiju into the sky, and has, in my opinion, one of the most fun movies in the entire franchise. In all seriousness, let's take a look at his feats, starting with his atomic breath. According to the Versus Wiki, his standard atomic breath managed to partially destroy the Gorath asteroid before causing it to crash in his face. If you can't tell, many of his feats come from here. Let's take a look at the breath. Gorath was moving at around 197,123,358.9 meters per second, or at around 65% the speed of light, or in simpler terms, Mach 574,674.725. With hollowness applied, the Gorath asteroid should weigh around 2,482,004.486371908 metric tons with Monster X inside of it. Under all of these conditions, Final Wars' atomic breath was blasting this asteroid to try and slow it down. The amount of energy used during this period is around 2.2 petatons of TNT per second, with the total amount being outputted at 17.4 petatons of TNT. This is also the amount of energy that Final Wars took to the face when the Gorath asteroid collided with him and the surrounding city, and he stood there completely unscathed. His striking power should be in a similar range, however, there isn't a direct amount given. However, he can actively combat against Monster X's light beams, moving at a similar speed of 65.75% the speed of light. Not to mention that Monster X's striking strength should be around the 17.4 petaton calc, because his strikes were strong enough to visibly hurt Final Wars, mainly the beams. Final Wars was also pummeling him earlier with similar looking punches and his atomic breath, of course, so these stats are around the same ballpark. In terms of stamina, my man quite literally spends the entire movie fighting monsters after a many-year-long slumber non-stop, and his only known weakness is cold sub-zero temperatures. He's also fairly intelligent, being able to come up with new strategies mid-fight and recognizing threats or lack of threats when he spared the humans at the end of the movie. All around, with all of his abilities and stats, Final Wars Godzilla, despite one weakness, displays an unstoppable, unyielding will to survive. And if you're going to go fight him, which good luck if you do, try to tally all of the creative ways that he'll potentially try to finish you off. Trust me, there are a lot of them.
you playing Minecraft. I like your cut, G.
Now let's move on to the MonsterVerse Godzilla. This version, standing at 108 meters and weighing in at 164,000 tons, managed to survive the Permian extinction, blew a hole through the earth, casually fights an alien dragon, did this, and ended up defeating Kong in their much-needed rematch. Not to mention, this version has some of the best special effects the franchise has ever seen. With that out of the way, let's dive into his feats. Starting with his atomic breath, I'll take a look at the Hollow Earth feat. Now, yes, some may not consider this a feat of strength, but because his breath managed to destroy this much rock, I'll be using it to gauge how much damage this breath can do to another kaiju, given it was able to do that much damage given enough time. When we take a look at the amount of rock destroyed, the distance from Hong Kong to Hollow Earth was 5,052 kilometers, and the breath itself finished after around 3 minutes. Given this, we come down to a speed of 28,066.7 meters per second. The volume of the hole itself was around 29.9 kilometers and had a diameter of 86.8 meters. If this is a completely linear hole, the amount of power used was around 183.6 gigatons of TNT. However, this is ignoring the fact that, according to the Versus Wiki, the hole was bigger at the bottom than it was at the top, having a diameter of 203.42 meters, which meant that he had to output even more energy to do this, resulting in that calc to be 526 gigatons of TNT. In terms of striking strength, there isn't much to go off of here either, but assuming he could push back Mutos and Ghidorah on his own, which he has also done with his breath, his striking strength should be in a similar range. In terms of durability, this man survived an extinction level event. So let's talk about it. The impact speed of the meteor was around 11 kilometers per second, which is Mach 32.07. Because the wiki says it's about 210.37 meters above the ground, that means that from that distance, it would be hitting Godzilla at 36.6 gigatons of TNT. In terms of attack speed, he's between Mach 50 and 100, being able to whip his tail around faster than the speed of sound. In terms of stamina, this Godzilla managed to fight Kong for 12 hours straight, and even fighting monster after monster on multiple occasions, not to mention clutching up that 2v1 against the Mutos back in 2014. With intelligence is where his disadvantages start to arise. He's not dumb, but rather instinctive and animalistic, but has determined some capabilities of developing strategies and clever solutions to his issues. His main weakness, however, are his gills. Because he uses these to breathe underwater, they are notably weaker and softer than the rest of the body. Overall, however, similar to his opponent, his willpower is unstoppable, and if he's going down, he will not lose silently. So, now that we compare the stats, yeah, this is a rough one. Don't get me wrong, the MonsterVerse Godzilla's feats are very impressive, but Final Wars practically outclasses him in every way. So, let's explain why. In terms of the atomic breath, yes, MonsterVerse drilling a hole through the earth is impressive, but compared to the Gorath explosion, Final Wars' atomic breath on its own without any plot armor boosts would be 3,246 times stronger than MonsterVerse Godzilla's atomic breath. Given that their striking strength could be theorized to be in a similar range to their atomic breath, that difference, while potentially smaller, is still in favor of Final Wars. And while yes, his lifting strength may not be entirely helpful since MonsterVerse Godzilla is heavier than anything Final Wars has ever lifted, In terms of physical strength, Final Wars has been seen to pick up and throw much heavier kaiju than MonsterVerse has fought, let alone pushed, minus the Muto Prime, making him physically stronger. While MonsterVerse has held Muto Prime on his back, he only managed to hold it there and not throw it. With speed, Final Wars is at Mach 574,675, while, being generous to the MonsterVerse version, puts him at Mach 100, making Final Wars 5,747 times faster than MonsterVerse. With durability comes another point for Final Wars, as, comparing the Gorath collision with the Permian extinction event, Final Wars is 47,540 times more durable than MonsterVerse, and at minimum, Final Wars is 3,246 times tougher than MonsterVerse's strongest possible attack. Hell, Final Wars' durability could be even higher since the Gorath asteroid was stated to have destroyed the planet if it didn't collide with Final Wars, possibly putting him at an even higher durability level than MonsterVerse. While stamina seems much closer, Final Wars has been seen fighting many more kaiju in a slightly longer span of time compared to each bout that MonsterVerse has had over the years. Even giving the 12-hour fights with Kong and the power boosts throughout the movies, Final Wars spent potentially days of back-to-back fighting against other kaiju, and still having enough energy to output the Gorath explosion. Not to mention that Monster X was typically the only monster that gave Godzilla any kind of grief or trouble for a long period of time. And when he's not fighting, he's quite literally walking across the planet trying to reach his destination. With intelligence, it's mainly described that Final Wars is slightly smarter, as MonsterVerse is much more instinctive, and Final Wars has been stated and shown to have many more strategical elements in his fights. Another notable plus for Final Wars is that his weakness is much less exploitable, as MonsterVerse doesn't really have a weapon to deal against his sub-zero temperature weakness, while Final Wars can directly attack MonsterVerse's gills, which we know that Final Wars is capable of doing because of his strategy-building intelligence. Speaking of temperatures, I'm willing to bet that someone will argue about the temperature of their atomic breaths, but after doing further research, these two breaths, along with many others, seem to be within the same range of temperature, as there isn't a directly given temperature for either of their breaths. And even if MonsterVerse's breath is hotter, giving the benefit of the doubt, it's not going to do much damage to Final Wars because of how much more durable he is. In the end, while MonsterVerse is larger and even has a larger catalog of feats, Final Wars can hit harder, fight faster, tank better, think smarter, and in general, snatches most of, if not all of the advantages in this fight. While it might seem close upon first glance, each feat that MonsterVerse provides, while very impressive on its own, pale to the raw power that is Final Wars Godzilla. As a result, the winner of this bout is Final Wars Godzilla. And with that, I am finished debating for the day. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to share it around, and thank you for spending your precious time to watch my content. It seriously means a lot. And with that, I'll be going now. Goodbye.